Hey, what is going on, guys? Quinto here, bringing you a brand new episode of Essential Things and Where to Find Them, Episode 3 now, and I want to thank you guys so much for your support on this series, and not only that, but subscribing to the YouTube channel. The amount of Dark Souls fans that have subscribed here in the past week, it's literally been overbearing, and it means so much to me. You know, it brings me incentive to continue what I love doing with this idea that I had to create this series that would look at different weapons, items, and things that I feel like would be enjoyable for others to use in Dark Souls 3. Today, Server Snape and I will be displaying for you guys the Moonlight Greatsword. How to use it effectively, at least in my opinion, the stats I like to run around it, and PVE and PvP displays, as well as just damage spotlight. This weapon hits like an absolute truck, and if you're running an int build, it's definitely worth a shot. So now, for starters, if you want to get this weapon early, what I'm showing you currently on the screen is a early version of the Dance of the Boreal Valley fight. Now, you've probably seen this video on YouTube. This is essentially this is a trick to bring the swordsman NPC into this boss room and have him kill the Dance of the Boreal Valley for you before you even get out of High Wall of Lothric. Now, to obviously make this work, you cannot kill Vort of the Boreal Valley. You bring the swordsman into the boss room, you slay the lady sitting on the chair, and you pick up the basin. When you pick up the basin, obviously the dancer comes. You need to let her kill the swordsmaster the first time round. You come back in here, and his health the second go round scales up drastically, and I think that's because he assumes, or at least the game assumes, that he is an NPC summon for this fight. Now, he shouldn't die, and he has a hell of a lot of Estus, and not only that, because he's wielding a katana conveniently enough, he will dish out bleed damage, which you'll see on the Dance of the Boreal Valley's health bar here in a second. Now, the trick here is to just pretty much do squares, do laps around the room. There's the bleed damage. But you need to do laps around the room and do not stop moving. Make sure that you pay attention, because the swordsmaster will keep running next to you, which is obviously going to attract the dancer. Sometimes I like to stop, so that way the swordsmaster kind of stops and he initiates fighting a little more, because he's really conservative unless the dancer kind of picks at him. So again, you know, just make those laps around the room. I even tried throwing knives to help him build up bleed on the dancer. It really didn't work out so well. So just focus on running around. But when the dancer dies, link the bonfire and put the basin underneath the statue. That will initiate the cutscene to get up the ladder, and we are going to go to the Consume King's Garden, because the Consume King's Garden holds the boss that carries the soul that we need to get the Moonlight Greatsword. That is a lot of wording. Now, if you watched last episode, you would know how I spoke about Consume King's Garden and the boss behind it, and how they're both not only optional but completely missable, not essential to the main story at all, but again, totally worth it for the sword itself. So once you get up the ladder, you're going to make a left out. You can summon a phantom here while you're embered up in this location. From that center location, you can run out and you'll see the fog near the steps below. Behind the door lies Osiris, the Consume King. Now, this fight's pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk you guys through it a little bit. I like to stay next to his right leg or in between him. I prefer his right leg, because when he dishes out that crystal splash there, you'll get stuck in between him, and you definitely don't want that to happen to you. So I just recommend standing to the side of him, you know, more or less from an angle, working towards behind his tail. And then once he gets into his four-legged form, you want to stay behind him at all times, because he hits like an absolute truck. A shield isn't necessary, just because you can go two-handed here and dish out a fair amount of damage. And the reason I summoned Hawkwood here was to see and showcase if I would get any items from this fight. But there was nothing that I noticed, but I think to continue the Hawkwood storyline, you have to summon him here. So if you're looking for that sort of incentive, definitely make sure you pick him up and take him inside this fight with you. But just pretty much stay behind him. If you see him look back, I'm going to see if I can actually show it on camera here. That's his crystal breath. That's something else you have to watch out for. But if you see him look back just like that, see, he didn't spin around, but when you see him look back at you when you're behind him, get ready to roll forward, because he'll do a spinning attack. It's a fairly simple fight, you know, it just takes a bit of trial and error. Once you get his soul, take it to Firelink Shrine and report here to pick up your Moonlight Greatsword. Now, with an intelligence build, with my current stats, look at how great these statistics are. You know, in terms of scaling with int, and it's only, you know, intelligence is only a D right now, and we're only at +1. I'm going to show you guys +5 later, but right now we're just going to stick with the +2. We're going to get the C scaling, and we're going to take a look at how insanely powerful this weapon is in PvE, not only against regular mobs, but bosses as well. So here I decided to take it towards Pontiff Sullivan. I was so excited to fight him with a heavy weapon. I wanted to see if it would change, if it would be more difficult, and just look at the damage I'm doing to his bar. I just really wanted to showcase that with the magical moves. It's insane. It's, oh my god. And look at how quickly I take down his Phantom. Now, the only thing to note here, if you use the magical strong attacks, I highly recommend you carry some repair powder. You can see over the course of this fight, my weapon deteriorated down pretty easily. So again, you know, go to the Shrine Maiden, make sure you're carrying that. Here is the Moonlight Greatsword with Hidden Body. Now this combo, just in general, on an imp build is insanely OP. I noticed with the bigger grunts, they have a tendency to not see you, even at point blank. And the fact that we can do the Moonlight Greatsword's most powerful move, which is the charging L2, and get that much damage off and not be acknowledged, it's insane. I did this in Ithral Boreal Valley with the Pontiff Knights. They did not acknowledge me either, so you can definitely use that in some of the more challenging areas. Now this is us using the Moonlight in PvP, and again, it hits like an absolute tank. I mean, it blows my mind. The trick to using this weapon in PvP, I noticed, is to focus on illusion in the sense of throwing your opponent off guard. Like if you're going to use the charging attacks, charge attack after rolling back, you know, charge attack at an unexpected time, or do an obvious move pattern and then switch it up, do something else and throw the charge attack in there on the end of it, and you'll just throw people off guard. And not only that, the magic does so much damage. Don't be this guy here. This guy, he decides to host a game and not only that, pick at me, and I don't know why he decided to pick at me, but it was definitely a big mistake on his end. And even though he didn't lose much, this was just, I enjoyed watching him die. This was really nice, but PvP is a good time. This is one of my favorite areas to PvP, and you know, on the off topic of this video. But anyway, yes, you can also run the Moonlight Greatsword with specific spells as well. I like to run this with not Crystal Homing Soul Mass because that takes up too much FP. The way I run this build, I'll show you guys my build stats at the end here. Now, ideal PvP for me is either Soul Level or Soul 90. In Dark Souls 3, I feel like Soul 90 is pretty reasonable, being that PvP is pretty diverse. You know, you put your stats into what you want, and then you have some left over for health and endurance. You know, you're not overdoing the health and endurance, and you can take a fair amount of hits. So now here you can see, you know, just the amount of radius it has. You know, even with that Pontiff Phantom, how much reach I had from the side to the front. You know, the amount of radius you can cover if somebody tries to dodge around you. Here is Homing Soul Mass. Again, you're saving some FP, and you can keep some FP for the Moonlight charging attacks. I like to use the Soul Mass, roll in, and either follow up with the Soul Mass or have the Soul Mass follow up with my swing from their dodge. Usually that will connect to stagger them, and I can follow up with a few more swings. So there's just so many different ways you can run this weapon. Look at the amount of, oh my god. If you can just catch people off guard at the right time, and I know I'm like fanboying out because I love this weapon so much, and traditionally I've always used it on my secondary build, my first build always being a Dex Faith build. But again, you know, just following up with the Soul Mass, you know, just using it to scare your opponent, and or not only that, you know, just switching the fight up a bit, you know, fight a little bit with the Moonlight and then whip out the Soul Mass just to throw him off guard. Here's Iron Flesh. Now this one's a little more predictable, but you do run into people that have no idea what it is. And the reason why this is deadly with the Moonlight is because you will not stagger, and you can just spam swing this thing. Here I had no endurance, so I'm just one swinging my life away. I'm like, I don't want him to combo me, and then he rolled back, and I was able to get him off with that magical swing there for a crap load of damage. And then again, here's Iron Flesh. He has no idea what's going on. He's like, I'm just going to try and parry him to death. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to swing magic at you if you're not going to come at me. So again, just the fact that poise doesn't exist in this game, I feel like it's really important to find that source, and if that's something that they do fix, the Moonlight Greatsword is only going to be more deadly if you were to wear this with like a wolf's ring or something like that. So here are my stats on the right side, and the reason I like to use a lot of endurance is because you get really worn out on the magical swings. You always need to pay attention to your stamina bar, and that was the Moonlight Greatsword at +5 if you want to rewind back and look at that scaling, because the scaling's unbelievable. These are my rings, and just from the testing that I've done, the rings that I found, this is the highest damage output that I can get with everything, as well as that ring in favor for the equip load, the stamina, and the health increase as well. This has been the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. From me and Professor Snape, I will see you guys come episode 4. Have a good night. Later.